He sat in front of his laptop, hands shaking, heart pounding fast. 3 faces appeared on the screen, waiting, watching. It was the moment he had dreamed of for years, the interview that could change his life forever. But as the first question came, his mind went blank. Words disappeared, English vanished, confidence died. He tried to speak, but what came out was a broken echo of his thoughts. Yes, I am software good. Silence followed, sharp like a knife through the air. When it ended, he already knew the result. He didn't fail because he was stupid. He failed because he couldn't speak. That night, Lucas sat alone in his small apartment, replaying the scene again and again. The feeling of failure burned inside him. He had spent years studying coding, building apps, chasing excellence, yet one simple language had stopped his entire life. He realized something powerful that night. English wasn't just a language, it was a gate to opportunity. And right now, that gate was locked. He didn't have the key, not yet. He looked at his reflection on the dark screen, eyes tired but still burning with something new, determination. He whispered to himself, I will learn this. I don't care how hard it gets. And for the first time, he believed it. This is not just his story. It is the story of anyone who has ever fallen and decided to rise again. Because sometimes, one failure doesn't end your dream. It just shows you where to begin. For years, Lucas had lived with one dream in his heart, to work at a big international tech company. He wasn't born rich. He didn't go to famous schools. But he had something stronger, pure ambition. Every night after work, he coded until midnight. Weekends were not for rest. They were for building his future. He imagined a life where he could travel, earn well, and make his parents proud after years of sacrifice. So when that email came, congratulations, you're selected for an interview, his world exploded with hope. He pictured the office skyline, the team, the meetings in English. He felt unstoppable. Nothing could go wrong, or so he thought. On the morning of the interview, he wore his best shirt, rehearsing answers again and again in broken English. He told himself, just be calm. You know the work. But when the call started, everything changed. 3 interviewers appeared, all native speakers, smiling politely. The moment they spoke, it felt like lightning in his ears. Their words flew too fast. His brain tried to catch them but kept slipping behind. Then came the first question, Lucas. Can you tell us about yourself? Simple, but his mouth refused to move. He could hear his heart pounding louder than his thoughts. He knew exactly what he wanted to say, but no words appeared. Seconds felt like hours. He finally forced a few broken sounds into the silence. I am software. I do projects. Very good. He smiled weakly, hoping they'd understand. They didn't. One interviewer tilted his head. Another wrote something down quietly. They tried again, slower this time. Still, his brain froze, words locked behind a wall of panic. At the end, someone smiled and said softly, "All right, Lucas, Thank you for your time. He nodded, pretending it was fine. But the moment the call ended, he felt empty. He sat there, staring at the black screen, feeling the world shrink around him. All the hours he had worked, all the dreams he had built, gone in 20 minutes of silence. He didn't fail because he wasn't smart. He failed because he couldn't speak. That night, he couldn't eat. He couldn't sleep. The word failure echoed like thunder in his head. He looked at his reflection in the window, a man who had done everything right, except one thing. He whispered to himself, "Maybe I'm just not meant for this world." But deep down, a small voice argued back, "No, this isn't the end. It's a test." He remembered his father's words, "The door doesn't open because you knocked once. Keep knocking." And suddenly, anger turned into something else, fire. Lucas wiped his tears, opened a new notebook, and wrote 3 words that would define his future. Learn English. Now. No teachers, no courses, only relentless action. He didn't know how. He didn't know where to start. But he knew he would never feel powerless again. And in that tiny apartment, under dim light, a new version of him was born, the one who would never quit. The morning after his failure, the world looked the same. But Lucas wasn't the same man anymore. He woke up before sunrise, heart still heavy, mind filled with voices telling him to give up. But one thought cut through the noise. What if I don't quit this time? He stood by the window, watching the first light touch the sky, and in that quiet moment, he made a promise. No more excuses, no more fear. I will learn English, and I will learn it fast. That promise wasn't born from motivation. It was born from pain. For years, he had avoided English classes, telling himself, "I don't need it. I just need to be good at my job." But the truth had finally hit him. Without English, he was invisible to the world. He opened his laptop and searched, "How to learn English fast without expensive courses." Thousands of results appeared. Apps, grammar books, online teachers, magic formulas. He clicked one video after another, but all of them said the same boring things. Memorize words, study grammar, do exercises. He had tried that before, and it had failed. He remembered paying for a class the year before, spending hours memorizing vocabulary lists. After 3 months, he still couldn't have a simple conversation. He could pass tests, but he couldn't talk. So that morning, he tore a blank page from his notebook. At the top, he wrote, "My own system." He decided to build his own way, a method that worked in real life. No memorization, no grammar drills, no teachers. Only practice real, living English. He asked himself, what do I actually need to say every day? That question would become the seed of everything. He didn't want to sound perfect. He wanted to be understood. He wanted to order coffee, ask for help, talk to strangers, to connect, not to impress. He realized the first battle wasn't outside. It was inside his own mind. He had to stop saying, "I can't," and start saying, "I will." He taped that phrase to the wall. "I will learn English in 5 months." Every morning, He looked at it like a soldier looks at a flag. It reminded him who he was fighting to become. Friends laughed when he told them his plan. 5 months. That's impossible, they said. He just smiled. Maybe for you, he whispered, but not for me. He cleaned his desk, deleted every app that wasted time, and replaced them with English podcasts and notes. He wrote down one rule: English is not a subject, it's a lifestyle. From that day forward, every song, every video, every word would exist in English. He didn't know if it would work, but he knew something had already changed. Him. Because sometimes, the biggest transformation doesn't start with success. It starts with a decision. Lucas began his journey the next morning, notebook in hand, eyes wide awake. He didn't wait for motivation. He started with discipline. He told himself, for the next 15 days, no distractions, no movies, no games, no excuses, only English. He realized his old mistake. He had focused on learning more words, not using them. So this time, he made a new rule. I will not study new words for 15 days. Instead, he decided to master what he already knew. He wanted to turn knowledge into action. He started by creating his survival sentence list. 50 simple, useful sentences for real life. Hi, how are you? Can you repeat that? Please, I'm learning English. I need a coffee. He read them aloud every morning, not once, not twice, but 10 times each. At first, his tongue felt heavy. His mouth moved like it was carrying weights. But after 5 days, something changed. The sentences began to flow naturally. He could say them without thinking. It was small, but it was progress. Then he took it further. Whenever he was alone, he started talking to himself in English. In the shower, I'm taking a shower. The water is hot. I feel relaxed. While cooking, I'm making eggs. I like eggs. They are easy to cook. At first, he felt stupid, but then he realized something powerful. No one could hear him. No one could judge him. This was his private classroom, a place to fail safely, to grow freely. And soon, his brain started doing something new. It began thinking in English. He no longer translated in his head. He reacted in English naturally, instantly. Every word he spoke added a new brick to his confidence. The wall of fear slowly started to fall. To make it stronger, Lucas added another habit, the 5 sentences rule. Each day, he chose 5 sentences from movies or real conversations. He didn't just read them, he copied them exactly. He matched the tone, the rhythm, the emotion. He became an actor in his own classroom. He repeated each sentence 10 times until his mouth forgot fear and remembered fluency. When he heard himself say things perfectly, it was like hearing a different person. By the end of the first week, Lucas no longer whispered words. He spoke them out loud, proud, fearless. He started timing his sessions. 30 minutes of pure speaking, every day, no exceptions. When he felt tired, he remembered the interview, the silence, the shame, the failure. And that memory fueled him like fire. He would never feel that way again. After 15 days, He looked back at his first recording. His old voice sounded like a stranger's. Now, he could speak basic sentences without freezing. He could describe his day, his thoughts, his feelings. Confidence was growing, not because he was fluent, but because he was consistent. He smiled and wrote in his notebook, "Day 15, I'm not learning English. I'm becoming English." And deep inside, he knew this was just the beginning. On day 16, Lucas stood in front of the mirror, staring at his reflection. The room was silent, except for his own breath. He could see fear hiding behind his eyes, but there was also something new, courage. He whispered, "Good morning." His voice cracked, soft and unsure. Then he tried again. "Good morning. My name is Lucas. I'm learning English." The mirror became his partner, his first audience. It didn't laugh. It didn't correct. It just listened. So every morning, he stood there, speaking to himself, sometimes 20 minutes, sometimes an hour. He practiced everything: introductions, small talk, emotions, stories. Each word made his reflection a little stronger. At first, it felt awkward. He blushed when his neighbors walked past the door. But after a few days, the awkwardness disappeared. He started to enjoy it. The mirror became a stage. He wasn't just learning words, he was performing confidence. He watched his mouth move, studied how his tongue shaped sounds. He mimicked native speakers' expressions and gestures. When he said, "I can do this," he looked himself in the eyes. And for the first time, he believed it. Each morning became a battle between doubt and determination, and every day, determination won. He practiced emotions to happiness, anger, surprise. He learned to make his words alive. He shouted, laughed, whispered, questioned. The mirror reflected not just his face, but his growth. Soon, Lucas didn't need scripts. He began talking about his real life. "Today I woke up early. I feel tired but excited. I'm making progress." Simple words, but they carried power. He realized English wasn't something he studied anymore. It was something he lived. When he struggled to find words, he smiled instead of stopping. He replaced "I can't" with "I'm learning." That small change in language changed everything. It built a new identity inside him. He started recording his mirror sessions on his phone. The first videos were full of hesitation. But by the 10th day, something magical happened. He sounded clear, natural, alive. He noticed how his pronunciation improved without a teacher. He had trained himself, day after day. There were still mistakes, of course, but they no longer scared him. Each mistake became a lesson. Each repetition became a victory. Sometimes, he'd pause mid-sentence, smile at his reflection, and say, "You're doing great, man. Keep going." It sounded silly, but it worked. He was becoming his own coach, his own teacher, his own fan. The mirror didn't just reflect his face, it reflected his transformation. He discovered something beautiful. The more he spoke, the less he feared silence. He didn't need perfect words anymore. He needed honest ones. By the end of 30 days, The mirror practice became his favorite ritual. He never missed a morning. And one night, while brushing his teeth, he looked at himself and whispered, "You've changed." It wasn't about grammar or accent anymore. It was about becoming fearless. Because when you can face yourself in the mirror, you can face the world. After a month of mirror practice, Lucas was ready for the next step. He wanted to sound not just correct, but natural. He realized something important. Speaking isn't only about words, it's about rhythm, tone, and emotion. So he created a new challenge, the 5 sentences rule. Every morning, he chose 5 real sentences from movies or YouTube clips. But he didn't just read them, he performed them. He studied how native speakers moved their lips, their faces, their energy. He wanted to feel the language, not just speak it. He'd play a short clip, pause, and repeat every line 10 times. Same tone, same emotion, same speed. When the actor shouted, he shouted. When they whispered, he whispered too. At first, his pronunciation was clumsy. He laughed at himself, but kept going. Each repetition brought him closer to the sound of fluency. Each day, his accent softened. He started recording these sessions. The difference after 1 week was unbelievable. He noticed small things he'd never seen before, how stress changes meaning, how pauses create emotion. He realized language wasn't a formula. It was music. Every sentence had rhythm. Every pause had purpose. One day, he practiced a line from a film. "I don't know what you're talking about." He repeated it over and over until it rolled off his tongue naturally. Then he tried another. "It was a beautiful day, so I went for a walk." The melody of the sentence made him smile. For the first time, English didn't feel foreign. It felt like a part of him. He called it the echo technique because he became the echo of every native voice he heard. Sometimes he'd play his favorite scenes just to copy the mood. He wanted to understand emotion behind words. He learned that thank you could sound powerful or gentle, depending on the feeling inside it. This practice transformed his confidence. He began to sound less like a student, more like a communicator. He even started to play with expressions, changing words slightly to fit his style. He no longer feared speaking. He enjoyed it. Sometimes, while walking outside, he'd repeat random sentences quietly to himself. People probably thought he was crazy. He didn't care. Every sentence he practiced made him sharper, faster, freer. It was training not just for his mouth, but for his mind. By the end of 2 weeks, his accent had changed completely. Native speakers started asking, "Are you from here?" That question made him smile. It was proof his hard work was working. He wrote a new goal on his wall. Speak like a native, think like a native. From that moment, every sound mattered. Every word carried energy. He didn't count hours anymore. He counted improvements. By the end of the first month, Lucas had built something priceless. A habit solid, alive, unstoppable. He looked at his notebook and wrote, "The echo becomes the voice." And as he closed it, he whispered to himself, "This is how fluency begins." After weeks of echoing voices, Lucas could speak clearly, but something was still missing. connection. He could pronounce words, copy accents, but real conversations still felt like climbing a mountain. He realized fluency wasn't just about sounds, it was about speed of thought. When someone asked a question, he froze for seconds. He knew the answer, but couldn't build it fast enough. So, he created a new exercise, the question-answer method. It was simple, but powerful. He asked himself a question and answered immediately. No time to think, no time to translate, just speak. He started with small questions. What did you do today? How are you feeling? What did you eat for breakfast? His first answers were short. I worked. I'm fine. I ate eggs. But he refused to stop there. He added more details each time. I worked on my project. I worked for 3 hours, then took a break. I ate eggs and toast because I was hungry. Every repetition made his mind quicker. He was training his brain like a muscle. Each question was a weight, each answer, a lift. Soon, his sentences grew longer, smoother, more expressive. His mind stopped translating. It started creating. He practiced for 30 minutes every day, sometimes out loud, sometimes silently in his head. He turned everything into a conversation with himself. On the bus. Where am I going? I'm going to work. While cooking, what am I making? I'm making pasta for lunch. It became automatic, natural, fun. He started feeling less like a student, more like a thinker. His inner voice began speaking English too. That was the moment he knew. He was truly changing from the inside. But Lucas wanted more. He wanted to speak like someone telling a story, not answering a test. So, he began adding emotion to his practice. He acted angry, sad, excited, confident. When he said, I'm tired, he said it like he meant it. When he said, I'm happy, his smile became real. He started to notice rhythm in daily speech. Native speakers didn't just talk, they danced with words. He practiced imitating that energy. Short sentences, pauses, emphasis, flow. Sometimes he'd record fake dialogues with himself, one voice asking, the other answering. How was your day? It was great. I learned new words. I'm improving. He laughed at the sound of his own progress. Day by day, he built confidence not from books, but from his own voice echoing back strength. When his friends asked how he improved so fast, he said, I stopped studying English. I started living it. He realized the biggest block to fluency wasn't vocabulary. It was fear. Once he stopped fearing mistakes, his growth became unstoppable. He began talking to strangers in small moments, ordering coffee, asking directions, greeting neighbors. Each tiny victory made him stand taller. Each brave word built new confidence. He wasn't chasing perfection anymore. He was chasing progress. And slowly, something inside him shifted. He was no longer learning English. He was becoming English. Because true fluency doesn't start with grammar or rules. It starts with the courage to speak every single day. Lucas could now speak with ease, answer quickly, and express himself freely. But there was still one thing that bothered him: his accent. Every time he spoke with a native speaker, he could see confusion in their eyes for a split second. They understood him. Yes, but not instantly. His pronunciation was heavy, his rhythm off. He didn't want to sound perfect. He just wanted to sound clear. So he began a new mission, to break the accent barrier. He called it the echo technique, a simple but powerful tool to copy native speech. He found short clips from podcasts, movies, and YouTube. He listened carefully, one sentence at a time. Then, he paused the video and repeated the sentence exactly as he heard it. Same tone, same speed, same emotion. Not just words, but the music behind them. He noticed how native speakers connected words. I don't know what you're talking about became I don't know what you're talking about. At first, he stumbled. His tongue twisted like it was learning to dance. But he refused to stop. He repeated every clip 10 times, sometimes 20. The first few days were hard. He felt silly mimicking actors alone in his room. But one night, he recorded himself reading a movie line. When he listened back, he froze. For a second, he didn't recognize his own voice. It sounded good. He smiled like a child who had discovered a secret. This works, he whispered. He kept training 30 minutes every day. Morning, night, sometimes during lunch breaks. He shadowed TED Talks, copied news anchors, and even sang along with English songs to master rhythm. It wasn't just practice anymore, it was passion. Slowly, his pronunciation became smoother. The hard edges of his accent started to fade. When he said water, it no longer sounded foreign. It flowed naturally, effortlessly. People began to notice, wow, Lucas, your English sounds so natural now. Those words filled him with joy, not because he wanted praise, but because he earned it. He realized something deeper. Accent isn't a problem. It's an identity. The goal wasn't to erase it, but to control it. He didn't want to sound American or British. He wanted to sound confident. Confidence, he learned, doesn't come from speaking perfectly. It comes from speaking proudly. He kept improving, recording, comparing, repeating. The process became his daily meditation. Each repetition was a reminder that consistency beats talent every time. One afternoon, he joined a group call with native speakers. For the first time, no one asked him to repeat. He laughed, told jokes, even interrupted naturally. He wasn't trying anymore, he was living it. That call ended with one of them saying, "Man, your English sounds awesome." Lucas smiled. He had crossed the line between learning and being. He wrote in his notebook that night, "Accent doesn't define you. Attitude does." And from that day, he no longer feared speaking to anyone. He knew the secret. Sound like yourself, only better. Lucas had conquered pronunciation, rhythm, and tone. But there was still one battlefield left: vocabulary. He knew hundreds of words, but often forgot them when he needed them most. It was like they lived in his memory, not in his mouth. He realized memorizing lists didn't work. He'd tried that before, and it always disappeared after a week. So, he searched for a smarter way, a way that made words stick. One morning, while reading a children's story online, he had an idea. What if I learn words inside a story? That became his next rule, the story method. Every day, he chose 5 new words, not random words, useful ones from real life. Then he created a short story using all 5. Nothing complicated, just something he could feel. Example: excited, invitation, party, arrive, surprise. His story: I was excited because I got an invitation to a party. When I arrived, it was a surprise. He read it aloud 10 times, with emotion, with energy. He imagined the moment, the faces, the laughter. By connecting words to emotions, he made them unforgettable. Each story became a memory, not just a sentence. Soon, he began creating tiny worlds in English, funny ones, sad ones, inspiring ones. He didn't study words anymore. He lived them. Whenever he learned rain, he imagined himself walking under gray clouds. When he learned victory, he saw himself winning that job interview. He discovered something magical. Our brain remembers emotion, not repetition. And emotion turned vocabulary into art. By the end of each week, he had created 35 new stories, each one filled with real-life phrases and natural speech. When he reviewed them, it didn't feel like studying. It felt like revisiting old memories. He wrote, spoke, and listened to his own stories. He became both student and storyteller. Sometimes, he acted them out in front of the mirror. Each story was a new scene in his English movie. After a month, he looked at his notebook. Over 1,000 new words without memorizing a single list. And the best part, he could use them instantly. When he spoke, the right words came naturally. His mind no longer searched, it responded. He understood something profound. Learning isn't about forcing, it's about feeling. When he loved the process, his brain opened like a door. English flowed in without resistance. One evening, while reviewing his notes, he whispered, "These aren't just words anymore. They're my memories." And as he closed his notebook, he realized that every story he told brought him one step closer to freedom. Because when you can tell your story in another language, you don't just learn words, you rewrite your life. Lucas had now built a wall of words around him. He could speak, listen, even tell stories, but one habit still held him back. He was still translating every sentence in his head. Portuguese first, English second. Tiny delay made him slow, nervous, unsure. It was time to break that habit, to start thinking in English. He began with small moments. When he woke up, he described the world around him out loud. The sun is bright, the room is cold. I'm still sleepy, simple, real, alive. He didn't try to be perfect. He just tried to stay in English. While walking to work, he noticed everything. The street is noisy. The bus is late. That man is wearing a red shirt. At first, it was slow. But after a week, his brain began to switch naturally. He no longer needed to translate. He simply spoke. Even his thoughts started forming in English. His inner voice changed languages. That was when he realized he was not just learning English, he was becoming bilingual. To make this habit stronger, he created 2 daily exercises. The first described the world. Wherever he went, He described everything he saw, out loud or silently. It didn't matter. Second, ask and answer. He asked himself random questions and replied instantly. What am I doing now? I'm waiting for the bus. What will I eat later? And maybe rice and chicken. These mini conversations rewired his mind. English became his default setting. At night, he started journaling in English. He wrote about his day, his goals, his mistakes. The first entries were short and full of errors, but he didn't care. He focused on honesty, not grammar, on progress, not perfection. Soon, writing became his favorite part of the day. It helped him see how much he was improving. One night, he read his old entries from week 1. He laughed not out of shame, but pride. He saw how far he'd come, how the boy who once feared words now played with them. Thinking in English had changed more than his language. It had changed his mind. He became calmer, clearer, more focused. He started seeing life through new words, new meanings. He realized language isn't just a tool, it's a way of seeing the world. When he said thank you, he felt gratitude deeper. When he said I'm sorry, it came from the heart. He wasn't just speaking differently, he was thinking differently. English had become a part of his identity, a new window through which he understood people and life. By the end of the second month, something amazing happened. He caught himself dreaming in English. He woke up smiling, whispering, "This is it. I'm finally living the language." And that morning, he didn't write "Learn English" in his planner anymore. He wrote, "Think English." Because the day you start thinking in another language is the day you truly become free. By now, Lucas was thinking in English, but he knew thinking wasn't enough. He needed immersion. He wanted English to surround him, shape him, and stay with him from morning till night. So, he created his toughest rule yet, the 2-hour rule. Every single day, no matter what happened, he had to speak English for at least 2 hours. No excuses, no skipping, no I'm tired. He promised himself to stay consistent. If he had no one to talk to, he talked to himself. If he had no time, he spoke while doing chores. Cooking. He described every step. Cleaning. He told stories out loud. Even walking to work became a speaking session. Every minute became practice. At first, it was exhausting. 2 hours felt like forever. But after a week, something amazing happened. He began to enjoy it. He looked forward to his speaking time, like an athlete waiting to train. His fluency grew faster than ever before. His sentences flowed naturally, effortlessly. It was no longer practice time. It was simply his way of living. He realized that fluency doesn't come from studying. It comes from habit. The 2-hour rule didn't just improve his English. It trained his discipline, his focus, his patience. Sometimes he didn't feel like speaking. He was tired, busy, or frustrated. But then he'd remember that interview, the silence, the shame, the failure. He'd close his eyes, take a deep breath, and whisper, "Never again." That sentence gave him energy. It became his fuel. He even tracked his progress on a wall calendar. Each day with 2 hours of English got a red mark. After a month, the wall was covered in red. It looked like fire burning with progress. He realized something powerful. Success isn't about doing it once. It's about doing it every day. Some nights, he practiced while brushing his teeth, repeating new words over and over. Sometimes, he talked to his phone like a friend, recording voice notes, pretending it could answer. He even started dreaming in English again. That's when he knew the habit had become part of him. He no longer forced himself to study. He wanted to practice. Fluency had turned from a goal into a lifestyle. It followed him everywhere in thoughts, in sounds, in silence. He wrote one note on his desk: 2 hours a day keeps fear away. And he lived by that rule, even on days when nothing else went right. Because that's what real growth looks like. Not speed, but consistency. By the end of the 3rd month, his voice sounded confident. Even strangers noticed it. He had trained his brain to think fast, his tongue to move freely, and his heart to believe again. Fluency wasn't far away anymore. It was walking beside him, step by step. And as he marked another red cross on his calendar, he whispered, "I'm not learning English. I'm mastering myself." 3 months in, Lucas spoke faster, clearer, and bolder than ever. But a new challenge appeared: grammar. He didn't fear it. He just didn't understand why people spoke differently from what he learned. He remembered the classroom rules: tenses, forms, structures. But native speakers seemed to break those rules all the time. They said, "I've been learning English" instead of "I am learning English." They said, "I gotta go" instead of "I have to go." At first, it confused him. Then he realized, grammar in books isn't grammar in life. So, he stopped memorizing rules. He started observing them. Whenever he heard a new sentence, he didn't just repeat it. He asked, "Why is it said like that?" He watched how people actually used language, not how teachers explained it. He wrote down patterns in a small notebook. "I'm used to it. I should have known. It depends on." Each phrase became a real-life example, not a grammar rule, but a living structure. He began to see how English worked in action. The rules weren't random, they were rhythm. He started comparing textbook English with real English. It was like comparing a sketch to a painting. He noticed how prepositions changed everything. On the bus, but in the car. At night, but in the morning. Instead of getting frustrated, he got curious. He turned confusion into exploration. Every mistake became a map leading to understanding. He began to ask native speakers for help. "Why do you say this? Not that." They'd explain, laugh, and share examples. And he wrote every single one down. He realized that grammar is like music. You don't learn it by theory. You feel it by repetition. He also started listening carefully to sentence stress. He noticed where people paused and where they connected. He shadowed native speakers again, but this time focusing on structure, not just sound. He whispered to himself, "Listen like a scientist, speak like an artist." Soon, grammar became his friend, not his fear. It guided him instead of holding him back. When he said, "I've been working all day," he knew exactly why it felt right. He wasn't guessing anymore. He was choosing. He started reading blogs, articles, and short books in English. He highlighted phrases that sounded natural. Then he copied them in his diary and used them in his daily speech. That diary became his secret textbook, built not by rules, but by life. He no longer cared if he made small mistakes. He focused on communication, not correction. Because the more he spoke, the more grammar started to organize itself naturally inside his mind. One day, while talking to a friend, he used a complex tense without even noticing. The friend smiled and said, "Hey, that was perfect English." Lucas laughed. He hadn't even tried. That night, he wrote in his notebook, "Grammar is not a prison, it's a bridge." And from that day forward, he never feared grammar again. He used it, owned it, lived it. Because real fluency isn't about knowing every rule. It's about making the language your own. After mastering the rhythm of grammar, Lucas started to notice something new. Fluency wasn't just about words. It was about details. The little pauses, the way people said, "uh-huh," or "you know," those invisible touches made English sound alive. He realized he still sounded a bit robotic. Accurate, yes, but not natural. So, he began a new mission, to master the small things that make big differences. He paid attention to how native speakers used fillers. Well, actually, you see, kind of. He noticed how they reacted, how they started and ended conversations smoothly. He wrote these tiny expressions in his notebook, calling it the secret language of everyday English. Every night, he practiced one small thing, one phrase, one tone, one expression. "No way, that's awesome. Are you serious?" "Really. Short sentences but full of life." He practiced sounding surprised, curious, polite, confident. He wanted to express feelings, not just meanings. Soon, he realized that communication wasn't just language. It was connection. He started studying body language too. The smile, the nod, the eye contact. English wasn't just spoken, it was performed. To improve his writing, he began reading blogs and online journals. He studied how sentences flowed, where commas breathed. He noticed how native writers used rhythm. Short, then long, then emotional. He tried to copy that energy in his diary. Every paragraph became smoother, more natural. He compared his old writing and smiled at the difference. He no longer wrote like a student. He wrote like someone who belonged. To test himself, he joined online discussion forums. There, people from around the world shared ideas freely. Posted his thoughts, nervous at first, but soon people replied, "That's well written." Each comment boosted his confidence. Every interaction added polish to his language. He even started editing his own messages, fixing punctuation, improving clarity, tightening flow. He learned that perfection doesn't come from one big step, but from 1,000 small corrections. Whenever he discovered a mistake, he didn't feel shame. He felt excitement. Because every mistake meant he was growing. He was no longer afraid to be imperfect. He began to speak with style, using pauses to emphasize emotion. He'd say, "That was amazing," instead of "that was amazing." Tiny changes, but they made his words alive. He realized that communication isn't just about information. It's about impact. So he began polishing his pronunciation even further, cutting filler words, improving stress, shaping tone. He watched videos of public speakers, imitating how they used silence as power. Soon, his English didn't just sound fluent, it sounded charismatic. Friends told him, "You speak with confidence now." And he answered softly, "I practiced it one detail at a time." He wrote a new quote on his wall: "Perfection is built from tiny bricks of consistency." And as he looked at those words, he realized he wasn't chasing English anymore. He was chasing excellence. By his 4th month, Lucas no longer struggled with vocabulary or grammar, but he wanted something more: fluidity. He could speak clearly, yet sometimes his rhythm broke. His sentences hesitated between thought and sound. He wanted his speech to flow like music, natural, confident, alive. So, he began his next powerful technique: shadowing. He found videos of native speakers' talks, interviews, films. He put on headphones and pressed play. As the speaker talked, he repeated every single word, immediately, without pausing. At first, it felt impossible. His tongue stumbled, his timing failed, his breath ran out. But Lucas loved challenges. He kept going, second by second, line by line. He didn't just copy the sounds, he copied the energy, the attitude, the emotion. He shadowed TED Talks in the morning, movie scenes at night. Each session lasted 20 minutes, but felt like running a marathon. His lips, tongue, and brain had to work together. No time to think, just react. Soon, something magical happened. His timing started to sync perfectly. He spoke along with the speaker, like a duet perfectly in tune. He started to feel the language in his body. English was no longer foreign. It was instinct. Shadowing taught him more than pronunciation. It taught him confidence. Because when he could keep up with native speakers, he stopped feeling like a learner, he felt like one of them. He began to experiment with emotion: serious tone, playful tone, angry tone, calm tone. He learned how voice could paint meaning, how silence could say more than words. He didn't need anyone to correct him anymore. He could hear his own mistakes and fix them. The mirror was now his audience, the voice in his headphones, his teacher. He shadowed while walking, cleaning, even cooking. English became a rhythm he lived to. Some neighbors thought he was talking to someone. He smiled, yes, to the person I'm becoming. After 3 weeks, his speaking speed doubled. His mouth could keep up with his mind. He tested himself by recording a speech from memory. When he played it back, he almost didn't believe it. The pauses, the emotion, the flow, they all felt real, natural, effortless. He realized he wasn't learning anymore. He was performing. Fluency had stopped being a dream. It was now a daily experience. He began to understand that every language is a dance. You don't study a dance, you move with it. One night, after a long session, he looked in the mirror. "I'm not copying anymore," he said. "I'm creating." That sentence made him emotional. It wasn't about English anymore. It was about mastery. He smiled, turned off the light, and whispered, This is who I was meant to be. Because true mastery doesn't come from knowledge, it comes from rhythm, passion, and persistence. Lucas had come far. He could speak, think, and even dream in English. But there was one last shadow he hadn't faced: fear. He had practiced alone for months, but speaking to real people still made his heart race. He feared being judged, misunderstood, or laughed at. He feared silence, that awkward pause when words disappear. So he made a decision. He would face his fear the same way he faced every challenge directly. The next morning, he went to a local cafe that tourists loved. He ordered his usual coffee, but this time in English. "Hi, can I have a cappuccino, please?" His voice trembled, but he smiled anyway. The barista replied quickly. He didn't understand everything, but he caught enough. He nodded, thanked her, and walked away feeling like he'd climbed a mountain. It was just one sentence, but it was freedom. That small victory gave him courage. The next day, he tried again, this time, asking for directions. His words came out messy, his accent strong, but the stranger smiled and answered kindly. He realized something powerful that day. People didn't care if he made mistakes. They appreciated his effort. They understood his intention. The fear that once felt huge now looked small. It had only existed inside his mind. So he began seeking out chances to speak. At shops, on buses, at his office, everywhere. Every conversation, no matter how short, was another victory against fear. At night, he reflected in his journal. "Today I spoke without fear. I'm proud of myself." He realized courage doesn't mean not being scared. It means speaking anyway. He remembered how he once avoided English speakers completely. Now, he looked for them on purpose. He started joining public events, book clubs, language meetups, group discussions. At first, his hands shook, his mind went blank. But each time, it got easier. He found kindness in strangers and confidence in himself. He learned something deep. The world doesn't wait for perfect English. The world waits for brave hearts willing to try. Sometimes, he said the wrong word. Sometimes, he forgot a phrase midway. But instead of panic, he laughed. He learned to enjoy imperfection. Mistakes became proof that he was moving forward. They were no longer failures, they were steps. One day, after speaking confidently to a foreign coworker, she said, "Lucas, your English is great. I love your accent." He smiled. That compliment felt different, because he no longer wanted to hide his voice. He wanted to share it. He went home that night and wrote one sentence on the wall: "Fear is not the enemy, silence is." And every time he felt nervous before speaking, he'd glance at those words and take a breath. The fear would fade, replaced by focus. He wasn't chasing approval anymore. He was chasing growth. Because the truth he learned was simple: the more you speak, the less you fear. And one day, you stop fearing completely, not because fear disappears, but because you've grown bigger than it. After weeks of small talks with strangers, Lucas felt ready for something bigger. He wanted to have a real conversation, one that mattered. So he searched online for English speaking clubs, One caught his eye: global voices talk to the world. The idea thrilled and terrified him at the same time. Dozens of people, all speaking English, all listening. He hesitated for 3 days. Then one evening, he whispered, "If not now, when?" He joined the group, camera off at first, heart racing. He listened to voices from Japan, India, Egypt, and France. They laughed, debated, and shared stories. It felt like the world was talking in one language, English. Then came the moment the host said, "Lucas, would you like to share?" His stomach dropped. For a few seconds, he froze. Then he remembered his rule: no fear, only action. He turned on his microphone, took a deep breath, and said, "Hi everyone, my name is Lucas, and I'm from Brazil." His voice shook slightly, but no one laughed. They smiled. They listened. He continued, telling them about his 5-month journey, how he failed, how he learned, how he refused to give up. As he spoke, something magical happened. The fear began to fade. He wasn't translating. He wasn't memorizing. He was simply telling his truth. When he finished, the group clapped. Someone said, "That's so inspiring, Lucas." And in that moment, he realized English had connected him to the world. After that day, he joined the club every week. He spoke, listened, laughed, and learned. He made friends from every continent. They shared dreams, cultures, and life lessons. Some were beginners, some advanced, but all of them were united by the same desire to grow. They didn't compete. They encouraged. Each mistake became a shared smile, not a shame. Lucas loved that feeling, the warmth of people learning together. He realized something he had missed all along. Language is not about perfection, it's about connection. Through these talks, he learned real expressions, real rhythm, real emotion, the kind no textbook could ever teach. One friend from Japan taught him slang. Another from India helped him fix small pronunciation mistakes. He helped others too, encouraging beginners who were shy like he once was. "Don't worry," he'd say. "Your voice matters." Each session gave him new confidence. His English was no longer practice. It was communication. He began to laugh in English, think in English, even make jokes in English. That was when he knew he belonged. The club became his global classroom. But more than that, it became his community. One night, after a 2-hour conversation about travel dreams, Lucas closed his laptop and smiled. He whispered, "I did it." Not because he was fluent, but because he was free. He realized that the greatest gift of learning English wasn't the words themselves, it was the people he met through them. And as he turned off the lights, he knew he would never feel alone again, because now he could speak to the world. 5 months had passed since that humiliating interview. Lucas was no longer the same person. He was reborn. He had turned fear into fuel, failure into fire, and effort into fluency. But one question still echoed in his heart. Could he finally prove it? One morning, an email arrived. It was from the same company that once rejected him. "We are opening new positions. Would you like to apply again? He stared at the screen, frozen. A mix of fear and excitement filled his chest. Was he ready? Had he grown enough? He smiled and whispered, "Let's find out." This time, he wasn't afraid of losing. He was ready to win. He prepared for days, not by memorizing answers, but by telling his story in English, out loud. He practiced with his friends from the language club, fine-tuning every response, every tone, every pause. The day of the interview arrived. He woke up early, calm but focused. He looked in the mirror, the same one he had spoken to months ago. He saw not fear, but confidence. "You've done the work," he told himself. "Now, just show them who you are." He opened his laptop, joined the meeting, and saw 3 interviewers again. The same faces, but a different story. They greeted him with smiles, and this time, he smiled back effortlessly. When they asked the first question, he didn't freeze. He spoke naturally, clearly, with confidence in every word. He wasn't translating, he was communicating. He told them about his projects, his growth, and his English journey. They nodded, impressed by his clarity. Every word carried months of struggle, practice, and resilience. He wasn't just answering questions, he was telling his story. For 40 minutes, he spoke with ease. When it ended, one interviewer said, "Lucas, your improvement is remarkable." Lucas smiled. He had waited 5 months to hear those words. The next few days felt endless. Every time his phone buzzed, his heart jumped. Then, one evening, the email came. Subject, congratulations. He opened it, hands shaking. "Lucas, we are pleased to offer you the position." Tears filled his eyes. The same company that once said no was now saying yes. He didn't just get the job, he got his redemption. The salary was $5,000 a month, the highest he had ever earned. But it wasn't about the money. It was about the man he had become. He called his parents right away. "Mom, Dad, I did it." There was silence, then his mother's tears, and his father's quiet voice, trembling. "We always knew you could." Lucas cried too. Not from pride, but from gratitude. He realized every failure, every lonely night, every small step had led to this. Nothing was wasted. That night, he didn't celebrate with noise. He sat quietly by his window, looking at the stars. He whispered, "Thank you," to life, to effort, to himself. Because he finally understood, the real victory wasn't getting the job. The real victory was becoming the kind of person who could. When Lucas received his first salary, he held the envelope in his hands for a long time. It wasn't just money. It was proof. Proof that pain turns into power and effort turns into reward. He wanted to celebrate, but not for himself. He thought about his parents, the ones who had believed in him when he didn't. His father, who had worked long nights fixing cars. His mother, who stayed up late sewing clothes to pay for his school. They had never asked for anything. But now, he wanted to give something back. He went to the store that weekend, walking slowly through the aisles, searching for meaning, not things. For his father, He bought a beautiful silver watch, the one he had admired years ago but never bought. For his mother, he chose a gold necklace, delicate, elegant, shining like her kindness. He placed both gifts in small boxes, wrapped them carefully. His hands trembled, not from fear, from gratitude. That night, he took a bus to his hometown. Every mile felt like a journey through time. When he arrived, his parents were waiting outside the house. His mother cried the moment she saw him. "You've lost weight," she said, touching his face. His father smiled quietly, pride hiding behind his eyes. After dinner, Lucas gave them the boxes. "Just a small thank you," he said softly. His mother opened hers first. When she saw the necklace, her hands covered her mouth. "Lucas, this is too much," she whispered. He shook his head. "It's not enough." Then his father opened his box. The watch shimmered under the light. For a moment, the old man said nothing. Then, slowly, he put it on his wrist. "We don't need gifts, son," he said quietly. "We just wanted to see you happy." Lucas smiled, eyes wet. "I am happy because of you." His father placed a hand on his shoulder. "You've made us proud, not because of your job, because of your heart." That sentence hit deeper than any success ever could. He realized he hadn't just changed his career, he had changed his life. That night, lying in his childhood room, he looked around at the old posters, the faded paint. He thought about the boy who once doubted himself, and how that boy had become a man who never quit. He whispered to this darkness, "Thank you for every failure that brought me here." Because sometimes, the road to success isn't straight. It's full of wrong turns that lead you home. The next morning, his father showed the watch to neighbors. His mother wore her necklace with quiet joy. Lucas watched them and felt a peace he'd never known, a calm born from purpose. He finally understood what success truly meant, not what you earn, but what you return. And that day, as he hugged his parents goodbye, he carried something invisible with him, pride, wrapped in love. Because the most beautiful gift of all wasn't what he gave them, but what they had given him, belief. Lucas's story had come full circle. He had learned English, but more than that, he had learned life. One evening, as he sat in his apartment, looking at his old notebooks, he smiled and whispered, "These pages changed me." He decided to write down everything he'd learned, not just about English, but about growth. He called it the 7 Golden Lessons. Lessons that had turned failure into transformation. Lesson 1. Mindset is everything. In the beginning, he thought English was difficult until he changed his beliefs. He stopped saying, "I can't," and started saying, "I'm learning." Every new sentence became proof that change was possible. Because when your mind believes, your world follows. Lesson 2, surround yourself with English. He changed his phone, his music, his movies, everything. He lived inside the language until it stopped feeling foreign. You become what you hear every day. Fluency doesn't come from study, it comes from immersion. Lesson 3, speak without fear. Fear was the only thing keeping him silent. Once he spoke imperfectly, nervously, honestly, the fear began to fade. He learned that courage always speaks louder than mistakes. Lesson 4: Active listening and shadowing. He trained his ears before his mouth. By copying rhythm, emotion, and tone, he built real fluency, not memorized fluency. Listening isn't passive, it's creation in silence. Lesson 5: Learn in context. He stopped memorizing words and started using them in stories. When words live inside emotion, they never fade. Brain forgets what it studies, but remembers what it feels. Lesson 6: Grammar through use. He no longer chased rules, he chased understanding. Real grammar isn't in books, it's in people. When you speak and listen daily, structure becomes instinct. Lesson 7: Consistency over perfection. The 2-hour rule changed everything. He learned that small steps, taken daily, create unstoppable momentum. Discipline is the quiet bridge between dreams and achievement. As Lucas reread the 7 lessons, he felt a wave of peace. Every failure had a purpose. Every struggle had a meaning. He realized these weren't just lessons for English, they were lessons for life. Because learning a language isn't just learning words, it's learning who you can become. He closed his notebook, took a deep breath, and smiled. He was no longer afraid of mistakes. He was grateful for them. And in that quiet moment, he understood. The best teacher he ever had was failure itself. Well, Lucas's journey began with failure and ended with freedom. But the real story isn't his, it's yours. Because maybe right now, you're standing where he once stood, tired, frustrated, ready to quit. Maybe you've tried and failed, started and stopped, telling yourself, I'm just not good at this. But hear this. You don't fail when you make mistakes. You fail when you stop trying. The secret Lucas discovered is simple. Consistency beats talent. Every single time. If you speak one sentence today and another tomorrow, you're already winning. Because every word you speak builds your confidence, and every day you practice builds your future. The pain of discipline lasts for a while, but the pain of regret lasts forever. So choose discipline, choose growth, choose yourself. Start today, even if your voice shakes. Start small, but don't stop. Because one day, like Lucas, you'll look back and realize you didn't just learn English, you learned courage. And when that day comes, tell your story, because someone out there needs to hear it. If this story touched you, leave a comment below. Share where you are in your journey. And don't forget to subscribe, because together, we'll keep learning, growing, and winning. Your story starts now, and it begins with one brave word.